I can begin recording. Thank you. Open the Planning Advisory Plan Commission meeting for May 23rd, 2022. And the first, I'm going to welcome our new senior planner, Mr. Kevin Talati. Welcome.
Thank you.
Our first order of business is the approval of minutes from May 9th, 2022.
So moved. That was me. So moved.
I'll wait for a second.
Second.
Motion by Monica, second by Mr. Bates. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You want to stand?
Okay, next order of business, special requests and continuances. I understand we might have a request for continuance.
There's one this evening.
Okay,
Dylan Fisher with the Wheatley Group representing Denton Floyd, the developers of the Arlington Farms project.
Mhm.
It is item, it's under new business for you all, Planning Commission 2022-39 and 40.
yes,
We're requesting a continuance of 2 weeks to the next Planning Commission meeting to address the concerns of staff and figure out if there's additional justification that can be provided to support our 2 requested waivers this evening.
okay. Actually, that meeting would be June 13th, so it's 3 weeks.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, and that's our next meeting. And anybody,
No, this is not a public hearing.
Gotcha. So, okay, I'll take a motion for that.
Mr. President, I'll move that the PC 2022-039 and PC 2023-040, the Arlington Farms parking and connectivity waivers be continued until the June 13th meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, under old business, we have PC 2022-013 Asher conveying landscape waivers. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one before we get to that. We do have a bit of business we have to take care of. It was findings on the order for Mr. Tim Crump. You were handed those that order last week, and it will entertain a motion on that order.
Mr. President, I move to approve and adopt the findings and orders submitted on the appeal of Mr. Tim Crump. These findings and orders from February 28th, 2022 here.
Regarding 249 and 516 North Madison.
What she said.
Yes. Okay, the motion is to adopt the findings in order as submitted on the appeal of Mr. Timothy Crump for 249 and 516 North Mass. Second. Motion by Mr. Shell and second by Mr. King. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion
Abstain.
carries. One abstention. Now, PC 2022-013 Asher conveying landscape waivers. This is the landscape waiver for the perimeter parking lots. Try this again.
My name is Chris Hinkle. I'm with Red Barn Engineering. We're the site engineers for the project. Mr. Asher, Bill Asher is here as well. Yeah, we were here a couple of weeks ago, spoke to everyone. Since we've worked with staff to come up with 3 specific waivers, basically clean up our request to eliminate any confusion that we had at our meeting last, or I guess 2 weeks ago. The 3 separate waivers that we requested are for the 5-foot wide landscape area, for the 1 tree and 3 shrubs per 35 feet, and for that required landscaping along the drive aisles. We're to kind of rehash a little bit, like maybe.
Go ahead.
Pop this in and show some pictures, maybe even pull the plan here if I can remember how to go through this. Of course, it's not gonna pop right up. Oh, okay, no, this one didn't work. Okay, thanks. Got it. All right, so here, actually, let's start. This is the proposed west side of the property.
Okay.
When we were here last time, we talked about the existing fence row and the landscaping that was already there on the west side of the property as well as the north side of the property. In our original request, we had asked for basically not provide the parking for that west side and north side, but then there was some confusion because we were providing it on the south side, but we weren't providing it along the whole south side. So we were kind of going back and forth. So what we've done is we've revised our plan here to go ahead and put additional landscaping to the south of the existing parking area. That was one of the requests that the commission made 2 weeks ago.
Right.
We've gone ahead and agreed to that.
Okay.
And then additionally, staff requested kind of on the northeast corner of the proposed building, there was a little bit of a gap in the existing fence row trees and shrubs. So we've gone ahead and added a couple more trees up along there to kind of fill in that gap as well. And then the real item of the biggest question or concern 2 weeks ago was about the proposed drive along the north side of the property.
Correct.
And we did have the existing trees along the existing drive that are shown up on this plan. And basically, as part of our request, splitting this out to 3 separate waivers. The first two basically are for anything everywhere. We're not putting in the number of plants that we want because of the existing tree rows on the west side and north side. And then the third specific request deals with this drive aisle. And I've got some pictures here as well, just to kind of show you guys really what it looks like out there. I had the pleasure of driving through there on Saturday and taking these beautiful pictures. But here what you're looking at is, this is from the south edge of the property. You can kind of see the property flag over here just in the corner. So this is looking along Griffith Road to the north and looking a little bit to the northwest. And you can kind of see the existing trees that are out there already, as well as some trees in the far back there that are the fence row trees. You can also see the way that the property is maintained is they do mow the lawn, but then the rest of it they just use as basically a hayfield. And that's the way it is for as long as that grows. And so we can kind of walk through this and you can just get a feel for how this looks as you kind of continue along. Just walking a little bit north here along the property. And really the whole entire time, you're not going to be able to even see that drive up there at all, kind of the way that the existing drive is today, just because of the way that the property is maintained. So we do have a couple more pictures here just to kind of give you, I just want to paint this full picture. There's the existing drive. You can kind of see, if you haven't been out there, you should. Maybe not on last Saturday when it wasn't as pretty as what it is today, but so the new drive is going to come in north of this utility pole here. And so that kind of gives you the look as to what you'd see. And then even as you get towards the end, that's looking due west on the property and basically the point where that drive is going to connect in. And this is what you're going to be looking at. You do have the tree row to the north as well as the existing trees there to the south. So I think with that, I think that would conclude our presentation, unless Mr. Asher, if you had anything else you wanted to add to that, or if you guys had any questions.
Well, we got 3 different requests, so let's handle each one separately.
I don't think we have too many comments, just one that if there is any remaining confusion, hopefully not after the clarifications, but in the staff report, our director Gabe did make a detailed map of ourselves on his end that explains where they're filling in that landscaping, what they're not doing, what they are doing. So referencing that will probably be very helpful. So I thank him for creating that. But, that's all.
One has to limit something off that has to do with J2A. We'll have a second one that has to do with J2B and then J2E about the drive aisle.
I want to make sure I've got the right ones in order. This is the first one. Okay. Second.
The third one's too.
All right. So is there any questions for the commission?
So I thought I read the staff report, I assume it was the updated one, that the need for trees on the new drive to the south, is that addressed
To the north.
to the north?
They're
I thought
asking
it
for a
said
waiver to
south.
that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the third.
okay, I thought it said south, but I could have read that wrong, sorry.
South side of the drive.
Okay, maybe that's what it was, okay.
I believe. Right, okay. Yeah, there's an existing tree line along the north part of the new drive. And they're asking for a waiver to put anything on the south side of the drive.
Okay.
That was the whole pain
Right,
last time.
right, yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah.
any other questions?
Yeah, I do. One of my concerns is the existing landscaping on the main drive, the one that goes down to kind of the center of the property. Doesn't meet the plantings portion of the ordinance. The ordinance calls for one tree every 35 feet, and 3 bushes. There are no bushes, and these trees are approximately 50 feet apart.
But there are two, there's one on the south side, one on the north side. I mean,
I think the ordinance, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think the ordinance calls for on both sides, doesn't it?
Yes, for drive aisles would require on both sides
Okay.
if it was a new development.
But if they're not doing anything to that aisle, does it have to be changed?
Even if it's a new, if it's redeveloping it, they require
For
the
the
whole
whole
side,
property.
yes.
To upgrade too.
So, finish up this.
And then using that as justification for not providing landscaping on the north drive, since the central drive doesn't meet it, I have an issue with that. The ordinance is pretty clear about what is required. And neither drive meets the requirements.
Bill Asher, 1288 River Road. So the only thing I really have to say is, if you go down Griffith Road, I believe one of my property is one of the nicest ones on the road. And here we're worried about some shrubs that I might want to put in. There's many other places that look a lot worse than mine. I try to keep my place look very nice. All my neighbors are for it. They have no issues. You know, I'm not an Amazon or a FedEx, just a little company trying to make it, so. That's all I guess.
I have a question for you. Are you farming the front yard in
Yes.
between the drives?
Yeah, it's hay.
Is hay gonna continue to do that as part of,
Yes.
so the hay gets taller than that, that's what, half grown?
No, it's due to cut now. You get 3 cuttings a year. But it's gotta dry. It's gotta quit raining enough to get it ready to cut.
So your crop will come up, you'll harvest it, then it'll come up again and harvest it?
Yep.
For 3 times?
Yep.
So the objective of the rules of the code is to minimize visual obstruction or provide visual obstruction for driveways. Would this crop property be good enough to meet that obligation if he's got crops that are high enough to cover tree or cars that go down the drive? Would that be a good substitute for putting in shrubs? Since he's farming it, but putting in shrubs doesn't make any sense. That wouldn't be a year-round thing.
It'd be that high for about a month. And then a little while later, it'd be that high for about a month. A little while later,
While it's there, maybe, but yeah.
but the rest of the year.
Putting trees along the North Drive, does that take away from the property that you can grow your wheat on or your?
Yeah, I don't take away from that.
It would.
Yeah, and then the cost,
And I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but I don't think cost comes into consideration for these decisions.
No, but that's
That is, yeah, correct. That's not, cost is not supposed to be a consideration for the waiver.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, there's three separate petitions or three separate motions that have been prepared. For the two of them for the parking lot, and then one for the drive. So, no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, in regards to PC 2022-013, landscape waiver request, Asher Conveying Perimeter Parking Lot, I move that the request of Asher Conveyor for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations. Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, A, that specifies a minimum 5-foot wide landscape area with a continuous row of shrubs must be provided at the perimeter of the parking lot for the northwest and east sides of the site parking lot, because the north and west sides of the site have existing vegetation, and the east side has existing buildings that will obscure the view of the perimeter parking lot landscaping, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that Asher Conveyor has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-05I for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in the request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Second part.
In regard to PC 2022-013, landscape waiver request, Asher Conveying perimeter parking lot quantity, I move that the request of Asher Conveying for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, B, that specifies a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs must be planted per 35 linear feet of planting at the perimeter of a parking lot for the north, west, and east sides of the site parking lot, because the north and west sides of the site have existing vegetation and the east side has existing buildings that will obscure the view of the perimeter parking lot landscaping, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that Asher Conveyor has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Michelle, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. And the third.
Mr. President, in regard to PC 2022-013, landscape waiver request, Asher Conveying perimeter parking lot drive aisle, I move that the request of Asher Conveyor for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, E, it specifies a minimum 5-foot wide landscape area with continuous row of shrubs and a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs per 35 feet of linear planting at the perimeter of a parking lot drive aisle for the south side of the proposed drive, because the proposed drive connection will be shielded by existing vegetation to the north and existing trees along the existing drive to the south be denied, and the plan commission find that Asher Conveyor has not met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Mr. Peony. All those in favor of that motion, signify by raising your right hand.
That's to deny.
That's to deny. All those opposed, same sign. Opposed 5-2.
So that failed. So is there an alternate motion to approve it?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the request for Asher conveying for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Applicable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering, J, Parking Lot Landscaping, 2, Perimeter Parking Lot Landscaping, E, that specifies a minimum of 5 feet wide landscaped area with continuous row of shrubs and a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs for 35 feet of lineal planting at the perimeter of a parking lot drive aisle for the south side of the proposed drive, because the proposed drive connection will be shielded by existing vegetation to the north and the existing trees along the existing drive to the south be approved, and that the Planning Commission find that Asher Conveying has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. 5-2. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next order of business would be TC 2021-107. Greenwood Sports Complex landscape waivers.
Sorry, so top, I apologize. We are requesting a
Oh.
waiver.
I'm sorry, for the record, state your name and address, please.
Identify.
Sorry. Rob Taggart, I'm the Director of Parks and Rec in the city of Greenwood. No.
Go ahead.
We are, for your consideration, asking for a waiver, section 10-3-6, J2A, with perimeter parking lot. Section 10-03-6, J1A for off-street parking islands. 10-3-6, H streetscaping. Have some narrative to support our waiver request to share with you. As far as streetscaping, the plan shows over 90 trees within proximity of the parking lot frontage along I-65. The overall landscaping plan provides more trees than the 1 tree per 40 requirement in that area, and maybe closer to totaling 1 tree per 30 lineal feet. Just depends on how property line will be measured in that area, and if easements are considered. Trees are clustered in ways to accentuate vistas, park features, along with native plant areas, providing screening in other appropriate areas. Numerous other trees are planted throughout the park, further enhance the park features, as well as use vistas to and through in front of the interstate. As far as the perimeter parking, landscaping, and all street parking, for your consideration, the overall landscaping throughout the project exceeds the requirements and quantities of plant material that would be required on a typical site parking lot. Landscaping has been distributed throughout the park site to be more in keeping with the sports park theme and the community regional park setting. Design is intended to complement and or highlight park aesthetics, playgrounds, and other park amenities. Parking lot is central to the park, but does not impact any neighboring properties, which I would here believe that is the intention of the ordinance, and does not have trees surrounding the lot and along the entry drive. Shrubs, plants, and native planting areas are located throughout the park, and while not immediately adjacent to the edge of the parking lot, are located throughout the park to highlight, again, and or accent entries and park features while providing an aesthetic appropriate to a large community regional park, as well as screening where appropriate. I've been answering questions.
Any questions from the commission?
Just for clarification, I think you said this, but all the plants and trees that, to me, those same plants are just being relocated to a different location, correct?
Correct.
So the same number of plants. no
Same
reduction.
density, yes.
That's all.
Other questions, comments? Okay, there is
Each first.
two. There are two motions prepared.
Each first.
Streetscape.
Okay, that's H. Mr. President, in regards to PC 2021-107 landscape waiver request, City of Greenwood Sports Complex Streetscape. I move that the request of the City of Greenwood for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, H, streetscaping, that specifies planting one tree per 40 linear feet of frontage, because existing trees in areas around the project provide more trees than required and are clustered in ways to provide adequate screening, be approved, and the Plan Commission find the City of Greenwood has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-040-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in the request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Joe, second by Monica, all those in favor of that motion, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign, motion carries 7-0.
Mr. President, in regards to PC 2021-107 landscape waiver request, Greenwood, City of Greenwood Sports Complex Parking Lot Island, perimeter parking lot and drive aisles, I move that the requests of the City of Greenwood for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping. 1, off-street parking islands that specifies a landscaped interior island evenly distributed throughout the parking area every 14 parking spaces within off-street parking lots. 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, A and B, that specifies a minimum 5-foot wide landscape area with a continuous row of shrubs and a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs for 35 feet of linear planting at the perimeter of the parking lot. And 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, E, that requires perimeter plantings along drive aisles be approved because the project parking lot is centered to the park and the overall landscaping distributed throughout the project exceeds requirements in quantities and plantings and provides appropriate and aesthetic screening. And that the Plan Commission find that the city of Greenwood has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Michelle, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Order of business is PC 2020-015 MGH landscape waiver. For Greenwood Springs Apartments. I here to present for that.
Yes, good evening. This is Greg Ripple. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. So yeah, my name is Greg Ripple. I'm with Terra Site Development. Our address is 16102 Spring Mill Road, Westfield, Indiana, 46074. We also have Jackie Briggs and Hiren Patel present today for any questions that we might have.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yep, just a brief intro would be, this is a landscape waiver request for the Greenwood Springs apartment by our client MHG Hotels. This specific request to waiver from landscape code section 100306 regarding landscape buffering. Our client is proposing an apartment development just north of the existing Verge apartment development. These two properties are sharing a north and south border. Greenwood Springs apartment zoning is IC and Verge apartment zoning is RMC, which requires a 30-foot buffer yard because of the zoning differential. Knowing the two adjacent properties have the same use, which is multifamily / apartments, we're requesting the buffer yard be reduced to meet the minimum width of our proposed development of 12 feet. With this request, we agree to meet the quantity of plantings necessary within the originally requested buffer yard. And the only waiver would be the width reduction from 30 feet to 12 feet. I think that's a good high level overview of the request. If anybody has any questions, we'd be more than willing to answer those.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Hill. All right. No, look at what's been provided by the planning staff.
Look at the location map.
One that provided in the.
It just shows site, it doesn't show adjacent properties.
Okay. Can you tell us exactly where this is located? The reference.
The site itself or the waiver request area?
No, well, the site itself. Do you have an address for that site?
I don't have an exact address. I think it's lots 5 and 7 of the Greenwood Springs PUD.
So it's over behind Walmart.
Yes, it's the Verge.
Yeah, the site's just north of the Verge.
We
I'm sorry.
covered the Verge a couple years ago.
Right.
And this is immediately north of it. The Verge plus up to that left-hand side of that draw.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking for a reduction
In that,
in
this area right
yeah,
here.
from 30 to 12 feet.
And I believe staff supports this.
Yes. and did reduce the number of plants, only the width.
That's correct.
Because they are actually the same use, multifamily, but their zoning classifications are different. And because the zoning classifications are different, the
They
landscape
require
ordinance
30.
required a 30-foot, even though the uses are the same.
And drive by, you can see it as the similar.
It would be,
Use.
yes, the uses adjacent to another
Was
are
that
the
due,
same.
was that due to unified development ordinance? Is that what changed that? Or
Yes,
was it- Okay,
yes, and so that is what's in the landscape ordinance for zoning applications. If you are adjacent to a more intense use, it requires a 30-foot. So
but it's the same.
calmer would be.
Is that understood by everybody? Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, there's a motion prepared.
Mr. President, in regard to PC 2022-015 landscape waiver request, SHN Holdings buffering, I move that the request of SHN Holdings for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Ridgewood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06 landscaping and buffering. 1, buffering, which specifies a minimum 30-foot medium-sized buffer yard for differing districts and zones of abut to allow a 12-foot wide buffer yard along the south property line of the subject property instead, because although it is zoned Interstate Commerce District, IC, and abuts properly zoned RMC, Residential Medium Complex, the two properties will have the same intensity of use, apartments, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find the SHN Holdings has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-05. I, for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Monica. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising the right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Good luck. All right. Next order of business would be PC 2022-028, Cummins primary plat. This is public hearing. 15 minutes for the petitioner, 15 for the demonstrator, 5 minutes both for each. This is a primary plat. Ms. Coons, would you explain our responsibility for primary plats?
Sure. A primary plat is a ministerial act. You look at the plat, excuse me, as presented. If it meets the subdivisions requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, you are to approve it. If you are inclined not to approve the plat, you have to specifically set for those portions of the UDO that it doesn't meet.
Okay. With that, do we have a presenter? Okay, we need to, anybody that's going to speak for or against needs to be sworn in.
My name's Mark Krinsky. I'm with Strand Associates on behalf of Cummins. My address is 3282 Beach Drive, Columbus, Indiana, 47203. Do you all have a copy of the proposed plat in front of you? I brought it on the flash drive.
Go ahead and put it in.
Okay. Yeah, here you have before you our proposed plat. I believe there's a slight typo in the agenda. The proposed plat is actually in the southwest quadrant of County Line Road and Graham Road intersection. As you see there, before you're on the screen, the total property is approximately 31 acres. And we're proposing to divide that into a lot 1, which is just over 10 acres. You see there on the western side of the property, and then a remainder block A, which is just under 21 acres. The proposed use of lot 1 is for a service center for Cummins, for servicing vehicles, engines for their customers that have engines and trucks, and buses, and that sort of thing. We have presented this proposed use to the BZA and requested a special exception use for that facility on lot 1, and received approval of that request a couple of weeks ago, conditioned with a few items with increased landscape buffering, as well as we are currently undertaking a traffic study to determine the impacts to the surrounding intersections from traffic from our site. The site itself is a pretty low, I would say relatively low traffic impact. You're talking on the order of 50 to 60 vehicles a day. It's not by any means like a distribution center or anything like that. And so as part of the acceptance from the BZA, we've agreed to implement any measures that come out of that traffic study that determine the proportional impact of the site. We are proposing to have both access points to this site to be along McColgan Road on the south side of that parcel, on the north side of McColgan Road. That's the same direction that we intend to have utility access through extensions to the existing utilities nearby, most of which are kind of in that McColgan Road, Graham Road intersection on the southeast side of the site. We've been through the outside review process as part of the typical primary plat. And we've addressed the outside review comments, as well as been before the technical review committee to discuss this, and kind of addressed all outstanding comments at this time. Happy to answer any questions you might have about this request.
All right. Well, it's anybody else to speak for this? Anybody to speak against, online or otherwise? Seeing none, close public hearing. Okay, open it up for questions, comments. I have none.
What's the building out process? I mean, what's the timetable for this if it gets approved?
If this is approved, the current plan is to move directly into the application for a secondary plat approval and a commercial site plan application. It's yet in the near future, with anticipated, if all things are approved, anticipating to build beginning later in this calendar year, complete construction next year.
And who's doing the traffic study?
That is Strand Associates, were the site engineers for Cummins at the request of the city of Greenwood. We're using the data provided by the city in a existing traffic study that was completed by A&F Engineering, which was actually pre-COVID. So the traffic counts are from the time before, people were working from home and that sort of thing. And so following typical traffic study practices, and we'll include that report with our applications for the commercial site plan and the secondary plat.
Well, it's my understanding that it's a very busy road to begin with. There's other entities out there that also wants to develop in that vicinity. There's other traffic studies going on. I just
Correct.
know that there needs to be definite improvements, but it's not the road is in Marion County, not in Indianapolis, and they're the ones that's ultimately responsible for the improvements, I understand.
Correct.
Sure. Yeah, we're just trying to show our proportional impacts to the existing condition and things that are growing out there.
And whatever that might reveal, you're willing to.
Right. If that bumps it into some new level of service that needs to be addressed, then that's part of the conditions of the BZA conditions that are put on the special exception approval.
Anybody else? Okay. Got a motion prepared?
Mr. President, regarding the docket PC 2022-028 primary plat Cummins Incorporated Greenwood Service Center. I move to approve the proposed primary plat of Cummins Greenwood Service Center submitted by Strand Associates on behalf of Cummins Incorporated, docket PC 2022-028, because the primary plat complies with the standards of the Unified Development Ordinance subdivisions division, and to direct the president to sign in the commission's behalf the notice of determination and written findings regarding the approval of the primary plat as prepared by the planning director.
Motion by Mr. Terrell, second by Monica. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Good luck with the project.
Thanks.
Okay, any new business from the floor? Seeing none. Any announcements?
As John earlier for the meeting started, Addison Avenue was gonna be ready for the parade next month.
I can't answer that. I know there's a great big hole there right now.
I didn't know if anybody from the,
We should have asked for Taggart when he was here.
Oh, I
what the
didn't think
parade
that-
route is, because I'm sure they decided what the parade route is for that.
just curious.
Paul, do you know anything about the schedule on the road? It's really a fourth floor question.
Correct.
Fourth floor.
Well,
We're not involved.
Kevin Steinmetz is the mayor's project manager. He manages stuff like this.
Yeah.
Both letting of projects and following.
Yeah.
Just last Sunday, yesterday, they had to relocate a water main. It's in that dugout portion. That's why things have sat still for about 2 weeks. Indiana American, it wasn't where they said it was. And so we dug everything out and they made that relocation Sunday between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. roughly. And businesses that were on the water main that goes down Madison Avenue, such as the PNC Bank on the front of this building, not this building because our water comes off of Market Plaza, but they were on a boil order today that was lifted about 4:30. I heard from, and now our in the basement there is a city break room, and that was part of the boil order. But we were lifted the boil order about 4:30 this afternoon,
I see.
so they're making progress on it.
All right. Thanks.
Going deeper on that, call it ranking 2. This is so deep. And I know, I haven't tried to that long on the foundation, not short at all. Anyway,
Jimmy Hoffman there.
any other announcements? Anybody?
Move to adjourn.
Yes.
Yeah.